Hey everyone, what's up? How are you? My name is Rachel and I am the proud founder of Siopa, Seize Your Passion. And I'm here every Friday from the Facebook group live sharing with you my thoughts for the week, my lessons of the week, what I've been thinking about on my journey to seize my passion, my growth, and become my best self, realize all my dreams and all that amazing stuff. And hopefully inspire you guys a little bit and cause you to think about and take some actions even towards your own growth and your journey to seize your passion. So this week, what I want to talk about is this notion of taking your own advice. You know, what I've been thinking about and talking to different people about is, you know, we're all so good at giving out advice to others, especially the people we care about and love, right? Our friends, our family. You know, someone comes to you who you care about, your friend, and says, you know, I'm thinking about doing something, but I'm really scared to do it, or I have this idea, but I'm not sure how, or what do you say to them? You don't say, don't try, don't do it, you know, you're not good enough. What do you say to that friend? You say, yes, that's amazing. You should at least try. And so what if you make a few mistakes along the way, and you should go for it, and you could totally do it, right? You give them advice that's empowering and inspiring because you believe it for them, right? But somehow when we turn that back on ourselves, that's not the dialogue that we naturally have with ourselves. More often than not, the dialogue that we have with ourselves is we don't give ourselves that same advice that we so easily and instinctively and readily give to others who we love and care about, right? And, you know, why that is, you know, it's obviously easier to project onto others and give others advice, but when you turn the mirror around and you turn it on yourself, it's harder to do. But I think, and that's just the way we're built, but I think if you're aware of that and you're aware of that dialogue that you're having with yourself, and you focus on having a conscious dialogue rather than a subconscious dialogue, then you'll be able to actually start taking your own advice. Hey Elise, what's up? How are you? Good to see you. So I'm talking about how it's so much easier for us naturally to give advice to others, especially the people we care about, our friends, our family, advice that's inspiring and empowering, right? If someone comes to you and says, you know, I'm thinking about doing something, but I'm scared, I'm not sure if I should, you say, yes, you should. You don't say, no, you're not good enough. You don't say, don't even try, right? You say, go for it. You're amazing. You should do it, right? But when you turn that back on yourself, more often than not, that's not the dialogue you're having with yourself, right? More often than not, our subconscious dialogue that we're not even aware of, you know, we tell ourselves things like, and we give ourselves not that same advice that we give to others, but rather we tell ourselves subconsciously, you know, no, I'm going to fail, or I'm scared to even try, or I'm not good enough, or how am I going to get this done, right? So if we're consciously aware of starting that internal dialogue with ourselves and thinking of our relationship with ourselves as a relationship like any other in our life, right? Like the relationships that you have with your friends and family, and the advice you give to your friends and family and the people you love and care about in the same way, and think about yourself as your best friend, right? It's really about, I guess that's what they mean by self-love, right? Really having that great relationship with yourself, you know, but also understanding yourself, because I think at the core of what self-love really means is, you know, you can't love anything that you don't fully understand, you know. So in order to truly love yourself and give yourself that same advice that you give to the other people in your life that you love and care about, that same inspiring, empowering advice, rather than that limiting, you know, subconscious dialogue that most of us have subconsciously, things like, you know, I'm too scared to do it, or I'm not good enough, or I can't. And you really dive into understanding what you want, why you want it, and talking to yourself as your best friend, as you would any other friend, and giving yourself that same advice and really listening to it. It's hugely empowering and inspiring. You know, what got me thinking about this whole topic in the first place was I was in New York last week doing a presentation, and one of the speakers there, an amazing woman, she ended it with just sharing with the group her sort of mantra for 2017. And it was very simple. It was simply saying to herself and reminding herself daily, I can do hard things. And it got me thinking, and I started thinking about, really talking to yourself that way. Now, it wasn't just, okay, this is my goal and this is what I believe and I know I can do hard things, but actually she said every day she wakes up and every time she's confronted with, a fear or a challenge in her day, she reminds herself of that. And she says that to herself. She has this dialogue with herself. I can do this. I can do hard things. I've done A, B, and C. Those are hard things. I can do this. This is a hard thing. I can do this. And it's the same advice that you would give your friends and family and the people you care about, right? But it's so easy for us to give out that advice to the people we love and the other relationships in our life and not do the same for ourselves and not give that same advice to ourselves as our own best friend with a deep understanding of ourselves and who we are and what we want and why we want it. And then listening to ourselves, listening to our own advice, basically it's taking control of that inner dialogue that you have with yourself to make it an empowering and inspiring dialogue as opposed to a limiting and self-defeating dialogue, which again, the default dialogue that we all have with ourselves is, for whatever reason, more often than not, limiting and self-defeating. We often, those are our fears, right? Can I do this? It's too hard. How am I going to do it? So if you just think of yourself as your own best friend and give your own advice to yourself and actually have that dialogue. I mean, even say it out loud. For me, that works, or even in your head, and I, after I heard her say this, I can do hard things. Every time I was confronted for the last week with an obstacle or a challenge or a moment of fear, of failure, or, overwhelmed feelings of, I can't do this, which was the inner subconscious dialogue I was having with myself in those moments. Every time I feel overwhelmed or fearful of failure or whatever limiting feeling I have, the first thing that popped into my head subconsciously, naturally, just innately, without me being aware of it, was, I can't do this. That's what you feel, right? So that's what you say to yourself. But then every time that happened this past week, and I noticed it, I said, yes, I can. I can do this. Just like you would, again, give that same advice to your friends and family and the people you care about. So I think having that inner dialogue and taking your own advice is so empowering, and it really works. And it's something that it's one of those universal, profound truths that are so simple and yet, really hard to implement and often that we take for granted and we don't actualize into our everyday life, in our everyday choices and in our everyday behavior. So really making a note of every day or every moment even that you're faced with a limiting feeling, right? Instead of letting your inner dialogue reinforce that limiting belief, turn it around and ask yourself, well, what advice would I give to, whatever person you want to use in your head as an example, a close friend, a family member, someone you care about and love and believe in, right? What advice would you give them if they came to you and they said, I'm feeling so overwhelmed, I'm so stressed, I can't do this? You wouldn't say, you're right, you can't do this, you're not good enough. You would say, you're amazing, I believe in you, I love you, you can do this, just take it one step at a time. Whatever advice you would give them, talk to yourself as if you're talking to another person, your best friend, which is you, Hey, Daph. Hey, Lewis. Nice to see everyone. Hi, Susan. That's really it. I'd love to, if you guys have any thoughts or comments, this is live, that's the point of it, so happy to have a conversation and not just talk at you. I know this is, me sharing my thoughts for the week, but it's a live stream so that, we can have a conversation and we can think out loud together. So love to hear your comments on that, you know. I mean, how many of you, you know, how often do we do that without even realizing, where we give others advice, but we don't take our own advice? You know, and that actually reminds me of something else that I do want to touch on. Hey, so nice to see all the familiar names, guys. You know, I'm a big believer in getting advice from others, right? Just like your friend would come to you and you give them that advice, and getting that support, and especially getting advice from people you look up to, or advisors or mentors or people who've achieved things you want to achieve, right? But that's something to keep in mind when you're getting that advice from others is, you know, first of all, are they following their own advice? You know, because I think most of us, even those people who we hold in high regard and who have achieved success, or we're going to for advice for a reason, right? Because we respect them and admire them. I think a lot of even those people very often are very good at helping and supporting others and giving others advice. But when they turn it on themselves and you take a deep look into their own lives and their own actions and behaviors, it's not necessarily true that they're actually also taking their own advice. And I think that's really important to keep in mind when you are getting advice from others, and how you take that advice, and to take it with a certain grain of salt. And also, again, when you are getting advice from others, to tap into what your own advice would be to yourself too. And if it doesn't sort of align with the advice you're getting, then chances are it's not the right advice for you. You know, you have to really, first and foremost, and again, this comes down to just following your intuition and your gut and listening to your core, true, authentic self, and understanding and knowing yourself, and really having that honest, deep, meaningful, loving, inspiring relationship with yourself, with you as your own best friend, and taking your own advice. Yeah, that's what I've been thinking about. Hey, Ray, long time no speak. See, nice to see ya. All right, guys, that's all I got today. Yeah, take your own advice, you know, encourage yourself, and start talking to yourself as your own best friend, as you would to all the other people in your life that you care about and love. Seize your passion. Bye, guys. Ciao.